Welcome back, guys. So, after a little bit of delays, we're back on it. And we're back onto painting. So, I've given this a little brush over, because it's also been lying on the bench for a little while. A little bit dusty, so just give it a brush over with a soft brush. Make sure you've gotten all the dust particles off it, any hair and phlegm. Then I've given it a blow off with the airbrush and then a wipe over with a microfiber. Taken a bit of masking tape and just reversed it and stuck it to the back of the side armor plates just to protect the wheels from overspray. Not too worried about if it goes over the tracks, to be fair. I'm going to be painting those anyway. If you wanted to avoid any paint going over that, a bit deeper or wider masking tape would certainly take care of that. So obviously we've got the underside painted, we've got the wheels painted, we've got the bulk of the rear end painted, although we need to mask this center section off here, just so we can spray that a more rusty color, but that's the heat of the exhaust burning the metal off. And then we've got the turret all sprayed up, primed up in NATO green or the like. We have the barrel done and the two machine guns. Right, so what airbrush am I using today? Well, I'm going to be using the Gallery Premium Mobius SP, so the siphon feed, and I've made up my trusty mix of US desert sand, and that was a bottle I made up a while ago, so it's basically XF59 with some buff in it, just to lighten up a little bit. And the usual ratio, roughly 50-50 mix between unthin paint and thinners. So, get the pot on the airbrush. We've set it around 20 psi. We'll give it a try. There we go. So we have got quite a nice flow. I'll tell you what, really like the trigger action on this airbrush. I haven't used it for a little while and you just forget how smooth it is. Absolutely beautiful. Now, it's maybe a little more ungainly than I'm used to working with the pot on, but we managed no bother with the truck. So how are we going to paint this? How are we going to add some depth and definition into this? Because, yeah, it's got grills and it's got handles and there's panels and angles, but it is just a great big green brick at the moment, and we don't want to turn it into a great big sand brick. We need to put definition in this, especially when we think that this vehicle is supposed to depict a tank that's been recovered for whatever reason, and it's been in the thick of it, so it's going to be dirty, grimy, and not as pristine as the recovery transporter vehicle. So we want to try and emphasize the shape. We want to try and build in contrast to the vehicle to aid in telling the story of how hard this thing's had to work. So it's basically down to our own interpretation and imagination. I mean, you can look at lots and lots of reference photos, but ultimately we've got to put paint down on this thing. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to do that with the aid of a piece of cardboard. Just came from an old USB box, so it's that single thickness, good, strong, shiny cardboard, and I have cut it with a very sharp craft knife and a steel rule to get a very fine, defined straight edge. Why have you done that, I hear you ask? Well, it's time to do some defined edges. So if you look at this vehicle here, there's quite a lot of very subtle, but definitely there, angled edges. So you've got some with weld beads on and some without weld beads. You've got some on the back deck here and on the engine covers. So what we want to do with this is we want to set it on that line. And we've done this before in aircraft when we were trying to demarcate panels from one another. And this is exactly the same process. So find a side that fits and you're comfortable with, and then just come in with the paint, start the paint flow off, and you want to flick it off that paint there, off the paper. So you can see that line building up. And the idea is we're going to get a very hard, bold, stark demarcation, and then we're going to fade it back into that panel. There we go. Now we've got that. We can just hold that there to protect the colour on the other side, because we don't want to get any colour on it. I'm going to come in, just move that down a bit, get into frame. So we want to come in now. We want to start doing our marble coat. So if you remember, this cover here lifts off. It is the engine cover. So we want to do that marble coat, but just stay away from the edges. Just focus on the central part of the panel. We want to get that mottled finish. Okay, and we're going to build that up. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the next edge here. We'll lay down. This one goes right across, and we're going to do the same here. So we want to really define that edge. Just take a note of how far across we've got to go. Try not to lay down too much paint, because you don't want to get spider marks like I've just done. Okay. So you can start to see that high contrast area compared to the rest of the tank. Now when we put the top coat on, this is really going to pop. So we can come down to this edge here. Just lay in that line. And same here. Right, let's go and fill the rest of this. Oh, I've got these two side pieces here. I'll do these two. So it doesn't really take much at all. We've got really rather nice sharp demarcation. We're going to colour around these two access hatches, and we'll do them separately with different. Just focusing on the panel, the engine cover. And bearing in mind, depending on how far away or how close you have your airbrush, will depend on how much and the concentration there is on the paint you're putting down. And you want to vary it a little bit to get that absolutely non-standard, non-uniform look to your paint finish. Focus on areas in the corners maybe. Just because we've got a little bit of hard line there, we want to just blend that in. Make the paint more opaque, just to lose any geometric shapes within the panel center. Now, we come in here now, we can actually just colour this panel in one go. And the fact that we're doing that will make it stand out against what we've just done on the other panel. Same here. Okay, so now when we've got it this far, if we put the blend coat over, so just a wider pattern, and just blend it all together. There we go. So we've now got a panel. Within the engine panel there, we've got two defined panels, and then we've got this nice mottled finish. And believe you me, when we get the oil weathering on this, this will look absolutely fantastic, just like it's been walked over by lots and lots of troops. Now we've also got this blend we need to put in here where we joined the top to the hull. So again, we come back in with our mask and we just spray that in. There we go. We'll blend coat across it. On to the next panel. So another area we're looking at is we've got this weld here. So we want to think, where's the light going to be hitting this? Bearing in mind we'll have a turret over the sides here. So the light's going to hit here and here. And this will be slightly more in shade. So, using our template, we will cover from the turret ring across that fold. Same thing, just come in, and we're just going to put a straight line in, like that. Blend it down the panel there. Like so. We'll do the same on this side. Okay, we've got a panel line here that we can put in this hard demarcation there. So we just set that along the weld bead, and then we just now remember to do the sort of flicking forward, because it's a sloped tank. Water will run and things will drag naturally downwards towards the front of the tank. Right. What we've got here, we've got a weld here, so we can put a faint highlight in there, and we've got one here, again just a faint. There we go. So then this rest of the work we'll just do freehand. So we want to go around here. I'm just going to take this crown cap off. Give us a slightly more defined spray pattern. There we go, see that straight away. Okay. So you'll notice I'm just working over these areas I'm wanting to highlight and then working that paint down. These I think are fuel tanks here and here, or fuel filler points, so you're going to get natural spillages and such like. If you notice there's some little spotting there, I just wonder if I haven't got the needle set all the way into the nozzle, so when I've let the trigger go forward, there's still a little paint leaching out. I'll just give that a quick clean. Right, back to it. So we just lots and lots and lots of streaky lines. And you can see that hard edge we put in there is leaving that definition that we're wanting and we're looking for. So we'll come and paint in here, and we can do some mottling here. This is actually going to be green, this one. So I'll actually leave that, use that as a bit of pre-shading for the green that's going on the top. And we'll do it for real on this side because, well, this is going to be sand colour. So go in with this random squiggles. There is actually a crease just there in the track guard. Right, we'll just come back in now with a blend coat. Don't overpaint it. Don't be worried about having to come back in if you're not happy with the finish. There we go. We've also got to paint the front panel. So let's start at the top. It's going to be brighter along this edge, and then lots of streaks down. If you need just to get that harder edge, change the angle so you can lay a bit more paint down. There we go. So we are getting a nicely tonally varied tank. What about here, I hear you say? Well, got some forward faced edges here and here. Again, just come in with our mask, lay it down, and get that panel painted in nice and bright. Okay. Sometimes it's a little tricky when there's protrusions on the hull, so you just need to reposition, come back in, and then what we want to do is just orientate it with the direction of the airflow, and then we're just going to gently follow the curvature of the turret ring, blending in. When you think you're just about there, that's it, stop. So we're getting that definition in, getting that 3D look, basically. If you want to put a thicker coat down the top of the track guards, and just come in with our mask and just lay it in. You get that instantaneous color differentiation. Differentiation. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the tank. Just picking out the shapes I'm putting in these hard edges to try and get that more, it is quite stylized, but that more 3D look to aid the later stages of the weathering. And I'm also thinking I'm going to put on a lighter sort of bleaching coat using the XF55. But the first things first is I've got to get this all finished. So the last thing I'll do as a sort of demonstration is how we're going to work these bazooka plates, or side armor plates, whatever you want to call them. Well, what we want to do is we want to highlight where the joins are. We want to highlight on the top edge, and imagine that this is all going to be dirty along the bottom edge, so it will naturally be more grimy or slightly darker than what it will be on the top. So it's that zenithal type highlight. So what do we do with that then? Well, if you want to aid your sharp edge, you can come in with this, but I don't particularly care for that when it comes to this sort of stuff. Just do it freehand. Much like we did on the front plate, is come in and define your highlights first. So that panel line, the highlight, top edge, panel line, top edge, and go down both sides of the panel line. Really define the top edge. Okay, so you've marked out your area of paint. And then what you want to come in with a flicking motion, start at the top and flick down. Try and get it so your spray pattern always lands when you come on the back down is your spray pattern is landing in this highlight area, and you're feathering it down towards the bottom of the panel. There we go. Okay, so we just do that along the whole of the side armor plates. So you have to watch you don't get too much paint build up like I did there, so you end up flooding the panel and you get spidering. It can be blended away, but you've got to be careful you just don't overdo the paint. There we go. So blend coat over that, and there's your first color and highlight on the armor panels. So that's basically how I'm going to tackle this. You can see the different ways I've gone about it to get this. I'm going to get on and finish painting this, and then we'll come back and start looking at the turret. So I'll see you again shortly. Right, so just got this final whole bazooka plate, side armor plates to do. So same as before, we're just going to come in, run down top of the plate, and then down the joins. Now, I noticed here that there is an angle I missed, and that's not a problem, because you can come back in after you've put the paint down and just add that highlight in, because it's just another paint layer that instantly gives you that three-dimensional look. Right, so I think you'll agree that that little bit of shading that we've done, we've given ourselves a really nice three-dimensional look to this vehicle. Now this is the this piece here is the piece we're going to spray a different colour. Right, and we can do that without masking as well. So, got some NATO green. And just to avoid having to change the glass jars, I'm just going to use my Gallery 98D airbrush. It's a 0.35 Neil if I remember rightly. So we don't need much paint. And this stuff's already pre-mixed as well. So just test spray. Yeah, we're getting colour, that's fine. So using our template mask, I'm going to put that straight up. This is where you got a little bit careful, but think where the overspray is going to go. So this is obviously a removable plate, as is this. So we can just tuck it in behind it, like so. And then we'll just work off the card onto the plate. And you want to build that away from the card. Don't go too close to the other edge. You want to get a reasonably solid colour because we're denoting a new piece of metal. And then same again, work away from the card. There we go. That's it, dead easy. And then we need to come in, so we need to actually get the card flat to there, and then just come in and paint that edge. And if we need to, we can always come in and touch up with a brush. But there's the basic paint, denoting a new piece of metal. And the same we want to be in here, so down the seam line. We've got to be careful because of the hinges, but we can paint them with a brush. So down the seam line. Get that colour in there. Now to avoid getting any colour on the tank, we're going to put our masking template in there. Spray in that top edge. As I said, we're not going to need much colour on this because it's already green. We do want to just get that sort of highlighted green at the top of the panel, letting it go darker at the bottom, just for the sun bleaching effect. So there we go, we've got our replacement panels painted in, very little masking needed at all, which is fine. We've got a little bit of overspray there, dead easy to take care of that. Just come back in with our correct paint. Just be mindful that this green paint might not be dry just yet. So don't lay the card directly on top of it, but just hold it over that line, and then we can just blow in that demarcation. Lovely crisp demarcation. We'll check the top of the tank just to make sure there's none there. Just wherever you need to be, just create that fine demarcation. Any other alterations we need to do, we'll do with the paintbrush. But there is the painted hull of the tank, and hopefully you can see that we've got now something that's not a brick. It's got highlights and it's got shadows built into it, and when we get a pin wash on this and general oil weathering, it's really going to pop. So what next? Well, actually we'll leave the turret for a moment. We want to focus on the gun barrel. So here's the gun barrel. We know that's the top because it's got the bore sight reflector on the front top of the barrel. And obviously, if we look at the shape of the fume extractor in the center of the barrel, then it's obviously higher at the top. And that's going to give us a guide of where we want to paint. So we really want to get the highlight down the center of the barrel. Okay, and when we're on the top, we want to do a center line. And then like a U shape, a Y shape. Okay, and we want to paint up there on these joins. So that's what we want to do. We want to highlight these. That zenithal highlight down the center of the barrel, because that's where the bulk of the sunlight is going to be hitting this thing and bleaching the barrel out. And we want some more shades. And we just want a light coat over the rest of the barrel to get that sandy colour started. But what we want to do is just leave it with the shading on. So it would be a sandy colour under the barrel, but it's going to be a darker colour. We want that light, bright colour on the top of the barrel. That's probably nearly there. There we go. We'll leave it at that. Right. So, turret top. What we're going to do here? Well, much the same as what we did on the hull. We've got lots and lots of panel demarcations, so we can, if we choose to, use our template, or we could do it freehand, or we could do a combination of both. So let's start with the blow-off panels. This is where we use our imagination a bit. It's just like doing a little X. So diagonally in from the corners. And this will help create shape, basically. Okay, what next? Well, we can come in here and we can spray straight down onto that. Periscope covers. And what you'll see is it'll naturally leave a dark spot in the center of the turret, pull back with the airbrush, and then we just fill that in. These bits will want to be quite stark, these upper facing surfaces. Tops of the commander's gun sight, tops of the gunner's gun sight. Okay, So just extend those lines into the center. So they meet, and then we can just blow that over. It won't be overly visible, but it'll be there. And it'll just be a very subtle hint of shape and form, basically. Right, so now we can do is trace out all these raised details. The tops of the smoke discharges, the smoke discharger cable holders. It's all really nice detail in the tank as well. Down the weld lines. Right, and then what we want to do is we want to focus on the fronts of these turrets here. So, we want to go highlight these edges. And what we want to do, same again, is come in with our card template and just hold it across the front where the angle of the front turret plate is. And we're just going to use that then. I want to do a bit extra on here because this is obviously a raised panel. Like so. Then we can just fill in a nice blend coat, but it'll still have that bright zenithal highlight. On the side here then, again you want to highlight that top edge, but this time just do streaks. You can get in quite close if you're not putting a lot of paint down. And basically you want that shadow area underneath the parts. And that highlight along the top edge, it's a sharp edge. Same here on this panel. So just spray down the panel. There, and the green underneath, we can just do a very, very light coat to take the harshness out of the green, but basically we're building in shadow. And following the weld lines helps us add the same definition we put on the hull to as we are on the turret, because it's just helping to break up the overall monolithic shape and subdivide it into sections that the human eye naturally finds interesting. Just remember, turret's going to be absolutely picket. Picket's a Shetland word. Mucky, with the troops walking over it. So you want to just work away with the mottled finish in between all the panels that we're demarcating through the weld lines. because we're going to do the same when we come in with a wash. We're going to use maybe a burnt umber, lamp oil, black mixed together to get a really dark, grimy colour. And then we're going to do some stippling and streaking. And that will help to look like the crew's boots have been walking over the panels. And that matte finished desert paint has been ingrained with all the dirt and detritus that these guys are having to walk through. That's that building up that imaginative picture of what this vehicle has to put up with. You know, it's this troop's home and where they're operating in. Again, these ones you want to spray from top down, so that will actually aid building up shadow, that zenithal highlight. We have a hair. If you see a hair, always stop what you're doing and get rid of it. Last thing you want to do is leave a hair in your paint finish. Now you can do what we did on this side freehand, same on the other side. It just takes a little more practice. Again, zenithal highlight on all these parts, and we need to come in from the underneath and just gently paint in some green, because obviously it's not green, sand over the green, because obviously this will be painted, but there won't be a huge coat, I wouldn't think. You should imagine where the soldier who's been on painting duty comes in with all this paint, and how particular they are to get this done. No, we're just about out of paint, which is right. Give me a moment to get some more paint in the airbrush. We are just very nearly there. Just got the rear bustle to do, and then that's us. So let's have a look and see. Back in a minute. Back after loading up some paint. So we can come in and we can just finish picking out. We can do a blend coat. just to kind of soften the effect a little bit. And then we've got to come in. And the beauty with the Abrams tank is the fact that it is a very shapely tank. So even if you don't end up retaining a lot of your pre-shading, you can bring it back when it comes to oil weathering, because the tank will naturally lend itself to getting oil paints in recesses and whatnot, so that it will build back in those shadows that you might have lost if you've gone a bit heavy-handed with the paint. The other thing you've got to remember to do is, you know, everything needs a coating of some of the desert sand on it, just because it'll stand out like a sore thumb if it doesn't. So this last chip panel, chip stands for Combat Identification Panel, and these panels were, I think if I remember rightly, painted in IR, infrared reflective paint, so when they were viewed through the thermal gunnery sights of vehicles or aircraft, they would stand out, and they had those waffle boards on them. Just made them a distinctive feature of all, certainly American and other allied vehicles, in the effort to stop blue on blue incidents. And then we drop it. Happy days. Thankfully this is quite a robust model, so it's not the first time I've dropped it on its lid. Okay. There is the turret, there's the gun barrel, that is our vehicle. A little bit of tidy up to do, just where we put in this green. I can get my mask. Just in here. There we go. So that is the first colour on this vehicle, and I'm actually thinking I'm quite happy with this. I'm not going to bother coming in with a second colour highlight because we've got enough definition already. What I'm going to do is come in and paint a satin coat on this, so we can then think about getting the decals on and then going into oil weathering. But all in all, I'm actually really happy how that has turned out. Again, a lot of the work you miss because it's covered up with a turret, but once the turret's on this way around, you will actually see all that work on the back deck. So that's really, really nice, and it just seems to help give volume and weight to this vehicle. Just remember to paint in the gunner's sight there on the inside of the doors. But yeah, so as I said, I'm going to go away and I'm going to get a satin coat on this, and then I'll get the decals on, and we'll come back and we'll look at the oil weathering before we actually put this all together and then get it onto the trailer unit. So we're moving along really, really well. As always, if you've got any questions, comments, or anything else you'd like to ask me, just pop it in the comment section below. I will take time to read it. I will respond. I'm not being very quick of late, just been with everything going on, but I will try and respond to everyone's comments. And if you like what you see on the videos, then please feel free to subscribe and hit the bell notification if you do that, so you don't miss any future content. So take care, guys. Until next time, happy modeling.